education of a boy. I think Pearse had probably read his Wordsworth very well, and he saw that the influence of nature, at least as far as he was concerned, was a very important aspect of just educating anybody. So you could have called him sort of a green before the word green was invented, and this brought him out to Rathfarnham here.
Well, you're in charge of this house and estate at the moment. What sort of a facility is the park here? Do people really appreciate it?
The one thing that I find that should be said about the way parks are used is that all the time it's thought that vandalism is peculiar to the younger age groups, 16 to say 23, something like that. And there is definitely a large problem there, we can't deny that, with all of the problems in society at large these days. But it's often forgotten that a lot of the people who write into the papers complaining about that sort of people have their own blind spots, are capable of just as damaging delinquency in parks.
What sort of examples of that middle-aged delinquency would you have come across?
Well, for instance, you would get examples of people coming in here, slipping things right, left and centre for their own little garden. And you'd even get the people going so far. We saw what would otherwise be a perfectly respectable middle-aged lady coming in, taking a spade out of the boot of her car, coming up and sort of digging out a specimen tree that we had just planted. And for some reason she couldn't see anything at all wrong with this. It was as if sort of nature had left it there, that it was just kind of bounty of some kind. We want people, when they come here, to experience the park as Pearse himself would have seen it, or as near at least as we can. So we're trying to interpret the place historically. We would like more and more people to come and use it, especially now as we have such a wonderful range of amenities in the park. At the moment we've got a sculpture exhibition on. Just for that alone, in the Millennium Year, we'd love people to come and see that, because the Sculpture Society of Ireland have put in a very special effort to put on a good show here this year. And I think they've actually been motivated by the nature of the place itself and its historical associations to put on what is, I think a lot of people recognise as one of their best outdoor shows ever.
Well, it's really nice having a park like this that you can visit the odd time, whenever the urge takes you. But most of us only have a tiny patch of green out the back to call our own. Shay's found some people in Rathfarnham who've given their gardens a very individual stamp indeed.
Judy Pegnam, what is your fascination with gnomes?
Well, I love the garden, and I don't think it's nice without them. Now, in the beginning, there were only some plastic ones. They used to break very easy, after a winter.
The mega gnome there, the big fella, where did he come from?
He's come from Belfast.
And how did you happen on him?
Well, I saw him in a shop, and I didn't have enough money that day, so I made another trip up, and I brought him down. And I went back, there was the second one, I went back for him and he was gone.
And you have a bunch of musicians nestling up there at the back as well.
They're the Furies.
And in the middle up there now, you have what looks like very much like an oriental statue. Where did that come from?
That's from around Ballyporeen.
Well, she doesn't look like she was born in Ballyporeen.
Well, she doesn't, no, but she must have landed there. And it was before Regan's time here. She's a while there.
And is your garden known to everybody now in Rathfarnham at this stage?
Well, they say it's a landmark.
Look. Anne, come over here and talk to me. Now, and tell me all about these wonderful dogs you have here. How many have you?
22.
And you have very swanky quarters for them here.
I have. The kennels. I have.
Do you mollycoddle them a lot, do you?
I do. They're spoiled. They watch television. We bring them for walks.
What about the people who come to see the gnomes? Do they eventually make their way out here to the back?
Well, if they want to buy dogs, I'll take them out here.
What are the names of all these dogs? Tell us a couple of the names.
Melissa, Jenny, Grania, Beauty, Lady, Dexter.
Is it hard for you not to have a favourite, is it?
It is. I do have favourites, all right.
Now, who's your favourite of the lot?
Dexter.
Why is that?
Oh, I don't know. He sleeps with me.
Well, Julie, Pegnam certainly has an unusual garden, but if you think it's the only unusual garden in Rathfarnham, you are mistaken, because I'm here now at the home of Philip and Evelyn Byrne, and you're in for a few more surprises. You have lots of unusual things here. Philip, tell me about the old water pumps that you have.
They mostly get them off of people when I'm going around, you know, working and that, you know.
Yeah, but not in Dublin, of course.
No. Some of them has got in Dublin.
Yeah.
A lot of them has got up in the Dublin mountains. We got a lot of them off here, the nuns and the priests. We got some off the priests on our farm.
And would you keep your eye out now for a statue that might be available?
I'd go in and ask in places.
Would you? What kind of places would you go in now?
I'd mostly go into to the nuns and ask, you know.
Now, also, Philip, you have some very old chimney pots there. How far back do they go?
I'd say they got back about 100 years ago.
And where did you come across those?
I got them in an old Jordan house. Here they're not farm. They were going to, they knocked it down, you know.
You have a variety of things here. The bus stop, where did you get the bus stop from?
I got that up in the Dublin mountains. It was in a big, it was in a lake of water. And I found it, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. Does everybody in Rathfarnham know this garden very well?
Yes. Even now, girls in the shops in Rathfarnham often come up here and they'd say, "Is that where you live?" Yeah. You know, we admired in the Avery and all, you know.
Do you like being famous for having this garden, do you?
Oh, I do, yeah.
Yeah.
I do, yeah.
Now, apart from all the stuff in the garden, up on top of the garage here, you have a collection of birds. Yeah. But down underneath, you have something very special, don't you?
Oh, I do.
Can we go and have a look at that?
Yeah, certainly.
Well, what great surprise are we in for here? Philip, you lead on. Well, hello there. Fancy that. A full-grown peacock in the garden in Rathfarnham.
Morning, Seamus. Morning, Paddy. How are you? I have the wellies, like you warned me. Now,
you need them.
right, are we off?
Yeah, right.
Right, come on.
When I went to school, my father, he cut turf. That's from back in 1948, 50, 51. And we came up as children. We liked it up here, and that was a great thing. He came up on a lorry that time. And it cost a shilling to come up on the lorry in Spain, Europe. It was one of our main fuels that time, you know. People depended on it. Well, here in Dublin now, I cut and I throw up the sod myself. But down the country, in parts of the country, especially down in Kerry where my relations come from, where they live, and in South Kerry, and one person cuts and he just tops out the sod, and then they have a fella down in the hole, and he is what they call the brancher, and he branches the turf up with a pike. Down in Kerry they called me a Slán of one man. That's what they called me in Kerry.
Because you work on your
Because
own?
I threw the sod up as well as cutting it myself. I done a man out of a job, like. If you went in the bog down in Kerry, I think on a Sunday you'd be shot. They laugh at us up here cutting on a Sunday.
How does it work out financially? I mean, how much does it cost you to get all the turf off this bog?
Well, it costs you £25 to buy the bank, to rent the bank.
Per year?
You rent that from Power Court Domain, and they own the bogs here. And then you have to pay for your diesel to come up and down, but on the whole, it doesn't cost you that much extra for the diesel. We're living fairly near to the bogs here, you know. Right, Paddy. The weather's a terrible lot to do with it. If you get good weather, you can get your turf out the mountains very early in the year. Like we say by June, the end of June, July. But last year, now, we had a very bad year, and I didn't bring home the last of my turf till September.
Seamus, that is an amazing amount of turf for a domestic bunker. How long would that turf last you?
Oh, we get two winters out of what's there, but then I cut next year again, because like the year might come that I wouldn't be able to cut.
How's the weather this year compared with other years?
The weather's very good this year to us, very good. We couldn't have had it better.
Do you consider this to be living in the country or living in the city?
Well, partly the city now, but one time it was the country, you know. One time we had it as it was the country we were out in here. Like it was just a few houses in it. You knew everybody in the parish. But now with all the new houses, you wouldn't know a quarter of the people.
Yeah, but I'm just listening to a very noisy rooster in the background and a couple of other things. I mean, are you running a farm or a home or a house
no,
here?
I always kept them as a hobby. All these things, I just kept them. We always had them all our lives.
And do you think that Rathfarnham is a particularly good place for that kind of thing?
Well, there's a good few people. Well, the odd few people up the mountains now, a good few people keep them. But there are still a few around here keep them.
And how far away are you from O'Connell Street?
We're 5 miles from the GPO.
And you can keep roosters, hens, and run your own bog?
Yep, a whole lot.
Rathfarnham has often been called the lung of Dublin City, providing oxygen. And one of the principal places that provides that oxygen is Marley Park, over 200 acres of green expanse here in the Dublin foothills. Now, there are certain things you're not allowed to do in Marley. You're not allowed to cycle your bike. You're not allowed to bring in your car. Dogs must be on a lead. Children under 12 must be on a lead. I'm only joking about that. Children under 12 must be accompanied by an adult. But apart from those restrictions, anything goes. And there's a great range of amenities here. And I think it's a fantastic place. But you don't have to believe me. Let's talk to some experts. What's Marley Park like?
Oh, give me land, lots of land under starry skies above. Don't fence me in. Let me ride through the wide open country that I love. Don't fence me in. Let me be by myself in the evening breeze and listen to the murmur of the cottonwood trees. Send me off forever, but I ask you please, don't fence me in.
Just turn me loose, let me
David Rowe, do an taisce see Marley Park as a very important amenity?
Oh yes, it's a tremendously important amenity, a great advantage to the city actually. The original concept of Marley Park and St Enda's, which is in the northern end of it, pointing in towards the suburbs of Dublin, was a wedge of green amenity land running straight out from the city up to the mountainside, uninterrupted. There are an enormous number of people who want to have their homes up there on the mountain. I wouldn't mind it with open space all around me and that kind of thing. So there still are the pressures. And I think, you know, I think it's pretty obvious that the county councillors give way to these pressures from time to time. So they're ambivalent. They're ambivalent about it. We've got to be vigilant. You see, there's gradual encroachment into the mountain area, into the amenity area. The worst example that you will see before very long is a house about 100 feet from the top of Kilmashogue. So there's a gradual encroachment, and really, with the growing pressures of the city, somebody must say, no, we've got to stop here.
Marley itself is not in any immediate danger, is it?
Oh, no, Marley's in no danger whatsoever. Marley is a godsend to us. It's in no danger. It's great.
Oh, give me land, lots of land under starry skies. Don't fence me in.
Well, before